Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles. I'm here with my friend and co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. So, Lisa, I should have asked you before we even started this recording, how do you pronounce your last name?
Oh, but we pronounce it Borgia. It's probably
Borja.
Borja, but my husband's family calls it Borgia.
I wondered. No,
Yeah,
where is the name from? Is it
it's his Hispanic name.
it's a
Yeah,
Hispanic name? For some
yes,
reason, I thought it was Eastern European. So
yeah.
nonetheless, welcome, Lisa, to the show. And for those of you that don't know Lisa is a graduate from Cal State East Bay. She's a passionate franchisee, a 20-year breast cancer survivor. She's a mother, a wife, an outdoor enthusiast, among many other things. She's been married to her husband, Dave, for 30 years, and the pair have been in business together at Budget Blinds for 29 years. She's an outstanding mama to her two daughters, Alexia and Audrey, who also help out in this family business. In her free time, you can find Lisa riding her bike and paddle boarding with her family and two pups, Hazel and Pepper. She also enjoys music. So, Lisa, we're so excited that you carved out some time for us
Thank you.
today.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Lisa. I don't know about you, Rebecca, but I am wondering, coming out of college, being in franchise 29 years, like what made you go the franchise or the business route as opposed to just going to get a job in corporate America?
Yeah, I think I had gotten a job when I graduated from college, and I was working for the state of California in a workers' comp capacity and their sales side, and I had a big territory and all of those things, and I felt like a very secure job for sure. And I serviced a lot of small businesses during that time, and I think that I grew an interest in becoming an entrepreneur. I do think as a child, I spent a lot of time um, learning about business during my high school years, typing and accounting and some core business things. And I was very interested in that. And I was in college, I took quite a few business oriented classes in my my general ed, I guess, in that period. And then when I claimed a major, I actually was a communication major. And I did work in banking during my college years too. And so I felt like, okay, I do love working with people. I love being on a team, but then I also just have this drive that I think wasn't quite fulfilled yet. And as a kid, I spent a lot of time with my grandfather and tinkering with his office machines and typewriters and different things. And so I think that was just kind of always in a little bit in my soul. And so when I got married and about a year in, my husband and I were just kind of researching, well, what would it be like if we started a business? Like, we're young, we're driven. What do you think about that? And so I probably spent about 6 months researching franchises at the time. I felt like I didn't quite want to have to do it alone. And, we're in a pre-technology world back then, right? Like, this is 1995. So we're not exactly on Zoom. So we're on paper and marketing is, we're looking a lot of envelopes and stamps, like we're there. And so I'm thinking, well, I think this concept of franchising sounds interesting to me. So we just kind of more started researching franchises because I didn't see myself being totally alone in business, but yet I wanted to be a part of something that I could grow or we could grow together. And so we don't have money, right? So we're thinking, okay, this can't cost a lot of money. Like, we don't have, I have a nice car, I'm probably gonna have to sell all these things. So we're looking into this, and my dad one day shared with me this ad, and it's print ad, like in the newspaper, this flyer insert, and it's about Budget Blinds. And he's thinking, oh, well, he needed to get a shade for his window. And that was just kind of how he found out about it. So he got the shade for his window from the person in Budget Blinds, and there were not many at the time. So I just started following, checking into that particular franchise because I thought, okay, well, this seems like fairly simple. I'm interested in design. I love home stuff. Let's give that a whirl. So I check into that, and I would say the decision to go to particularly Budget Blinds was more just about like really the excitement that I felt when I talked to the people at corporate at the time was very different than a few of the other things I checked into, and it was home based, and we did not have money. So that was my three reasons.
I love it. Your story is actually more common than most of us know. In terms of there's this little inkling that says, corporate doesn't feel quite right. I don't feel quite fulfilled. I don't know what it is, but you go kind of in search and you bump in to franchising. And your criteria was interesting. It has to be low cost. It has to be home based. I don't want to, travel wherever. So your
Yeah.
criteria, but you did have an interest in design.
Yes.
So I'm going to take you back even further for a second. When you were a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
did you have like a picture in your head that you were going to be mayor of San Francisco or some kind of, inventor or ballerina? Did you have a picture in your head of who you were going to be?
I feel like at that time, when I was pretty young, I was actually really great at piano. And so I probably thought at an early age that I would be somewhat involved in music, maybe not professionally, but I think that playing that instrument showed that I was very like fierce about learning on my own and very independent. And I actually broke my arm very badly, and that kind of unfortunately went by the wayside, and I did not go back to that in my teen years. But I think I just saw myself as probably someone that really liked to work independently. And I would say any teachers would probably say that about me, and I wouldn't be the person that was with a whole crowd of people doing the same thing because someone else was doing it. So I probably stood out in that way. But when I was in high school, I was very interested in business, had really good grades, but I think I saw myself probably working, probably more so, yeah, like upper manager at that point, but maybe not necessarily alone, like starting a business. Like that didn't really hit me until I was out of college. And then I thought, wow, like my job, I'm meeting with all these small businesses. Well, wow, like I could probably actually do that too. So I'd say it took a few steps, just climbing up like that idea path maybe in my head. But I would say yes, probably as a small child, probably I saw myself as being something, at least what I thought of as like important. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
You said something a little bit earlier, and then you touched on it again with this last answer. And I think it's worth exploring. You've been mentioning about working independently, being alone or maybe on your own, but also at the same time, being part of something bigger, something larger. I would
Yes.
love for you to expand upon that because I think that there are so many people that would resonate with that concept, or even for a mom or for somebody interested in franchise who might be listening, who kind of is borderline. They kind of want their independence. They kind of don't. Can you address that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that people should, especially women, if you look at what you do every day in terms of maybe if you're a mom, for sure, even stay-at-home moms, let's take that for an example. You have so many organizational skills, right? Like that you don't even realize. Like you're running this household, you're doing a schedule that is crazy. You're taking care of kids, you're maybe involved with their school. You're making a lot of decisions. And I think that women have to realize like, wow, you're running a really big ship, even if you don't feel like you are. And I find that a lot of running a business is very similar in some ways to managing a household and running a family. And my life has played out with just doing mostly those things like simultaneously. But I do find that they are often the same skills. And I think organizational skills and decision making skills, particularly, are the things that you need to hone in on running a business, and that many women do have those skills a lot more than they think.
I 100% agree
Mm-hmm.
with that. And I hope more women begin to see what they're
Yeah.
doing. Is they're running a kingdom, really is
Totally.
what they're
Totally.
doing.
I think they have a lot of strengths that really would play out really well actually in business, and particularly in franchising, and in probably many franchise organizations, but it's taking that chance or having that confidence to do that.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if I could throw a twist in here for just a second, Lisa. Um, when you look back at your life, and I know you've gone through some things, and I hope you can share some of that. When you look back at your life, can you see some kind of purpose or theme or motto or belief system that you have been living by, or it seems to come up again and again?
Yes, I feel like I was able to sort of identify that with words, or with almost like a mantra or a life just sentence, which would be: the purpose of life is life of purpose. And I think as I grew in my career, and ultimately, 20 years ago, faced my challenges with breast cancer, that particular just saying became very real life to me. And I've spent a lot of years just keeping that, written in journals. I've actually had those letters on my wall in my last house for many, many years, and my kids have always known that that is how we live our family, and really our business. And so, it's just been in my head, I think, for that I've been able to identify that's how I live my life for a long time. But it was probably there for many years, even maybe even as a child, that I wasn't able to quantify that quite yet. But that would be probably the way that I would describe myself, how I think.
Purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. I'm
Yes.
trying that on. Tracy, what do you feel
That's
about that? That's like,
It feels good.
this part of my body started to really warm up as I tried that on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it feels like when it is empowering. It's an empowering way to think. And I think it's also a very also personal way to think, because you can infuse that mindset into anything that you do. You can be a business person, you can be a mom, you could be a caregiver, um, an athlete, all of the things that people love to do. I mean, you can find purpose in, but if you wrap your head around, wow, like, this is me, this is who I am, it makes you stronger just be okay with who you are in a lot of ways, by thinking with those words in your head. They're very, I find them very motivating. And, like, even when you own a business for years, you still will have seasons of life where your focus has been somewhat distracted, right? Whether it's a health issue,
Yeah.
or your kids are very small, or your family is facing something in particular. And so I think that is also pliable, that mindset, into almost any season of life that you're in.
Lisa, do you think that mindset takes you back on track? Like if you wandered too far off the beaten path?
That's definitely a good question. I think for me, in particular, with just being short on time, and I would not say that I'm a person who thinks like work-life balance, oh, well, I'm going to find that. Like, I don't think that's actually, I listened to a podcast recently that talked about how that is actually not super achievable, really. And he gave an argument for that. And I'm thinking, well, I think that's kind of true. We really are only given so much time, whether that's in the hour, the day, the month, the year. And so if I measure what my focus is with that, I think it will help me stay on track to at least what I feel is most important. And I can take a step back and evaluate that better.
Do you think um, that what really highlighted that was going through the cancer?
I do feel like that was really my year, that it just, the light went on of like, that helped me maybe package that experience and carry it forward in my life in a good way, and a way that it made me stronger. And, going through breast cancer is a lifelong journey. I mean, especially when you're diagnosed when you're 34 years old, because there's so many things like the surgery, the scars from that you still will always have. And also just going through the whole physical changes that your body goes through with hormones and early menopause, and the question of like fertility, all of those things. And then at my age now, I'm still dealing with all sorts of nuancy things, like as you get older and you are in menopause, there's no hormone therapy because you've had that type of breast cancer, right? So a lot of people have. So I think that it helped me um, just birth that spirit in me, maybe a little bit more quantitatively, if that makes sense.
How did you get through that?
I was going to ask that same question. That's
Boom.
exactly how I was going to phrase it too.
Oh,
Hey,
and
we're simpatico, Tracy.
I feel like one probably counterpart to those words, or that saying for me, is that, and this is always my advice when someone reaches out to me or I'm able to interact with someone that is going through a difficult situation, especially with their health, is to take life one day at a time. And I think that is really how I did get through that. And at the time, I wouldn't have said that I did a great job of that mentally. Probably, I probably did more physically better with that than mentally, right? Because when you have two little kids, you're not thinking, oh, 8 months ago I birthed you, and by the way, I'm going to have to fight cancer in like less than a year. Like that is
Oh
just,
my goodness.
not on your radar. So I would say just and I would say that as I went through that journey, I did have a counselor that I talked with regularly, and a couple of other mentor type people, older women that had been through breast cancer. And that was a piece of advice that someone gave me. And I have lived it that way ever since.
But there you are, a new mom. You're married, you're running a household, you're running a business, you're one person. I still can't wrap my head around how you did it all. And everything was still
My mother is an amazing person, and she definitely helped me a ton. She had probably a couple years when my daughter was born, she retired early from her job, and she decided to come to work part-time in our office. And so she was like, all things, right? She had amazing administrative skills. And so she was able to sort of like be part mom, part office person, all these things. And at the time, part of our office was at our house. So she could go back and forth between our regular office and our home office. And I was still able to retain like, I would say probably 40-50% of my job, which at that point, because we did have small kids, I did a lot of the admin and accounting and things like that. So I think I stayed in my lane of my core value that I brought to the table at that point. I can't do everything. I can't go out on sales calls, but I can do this. And I remember thinking like the first few days after I had my surgery to have my lymph nodes checked, and it really affected my arm actually pretty badly. So I'm sorry, something is beeping outside.
I don't hear it.
Okay. And I thought, wow, like, am I going to be able to measure windows ever again? Because you're sitting there and you cannot lift your arm for a long time, very high. And but it heals up, eventually. But at the time I didn't, my husband was a rock star with selling, and our business model franchise that we are in with Budget Blinds were based on zip codes, and we have pretty small territories actually. And so, we're very efficient and dig deeper in our community for business. And so he was able to juggle a lot of that work himself at the time. So just kind of made it work. And he was actually most improved franchise for that year, believe it or not, when we were going through all this. So just took a lot of people that were really just willing to help us with family support and just doing a great job in the office too. So that part was definitely key.
This is such a beautiful story. I got to tell you, Lisa.
Thank you.
But I have a question, and you kind of hinted around this a little bit. What role did faith
Yeah.
play in all this? Because you've described, the support of family, and you've also talked about mindset and taking it a day at a time. Can you address how faith played a part?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think, we've always been people of faith, very, that's probably our most crucial part of who we are. And so at the time, we have our church family and people that come alongside, but in particular, my daughter went to a preschool in our community. And that was where, gosh, these women that took care of my daughter by day and teaching her, the Bible and all these things and all the songs and all of the great stuff that we had her there for, they were so like supportive of me through prayer and through just they would come and visit me. They would come to my house and pray with me, like very just critical. And it's interesting because um, all these years later, that particular little preschool has now become this like part of our church in the Bay Area and has become a campus for this large church we go to. And now we're there helping like
Giving
build that,
back.
yeah, and supporting them financially and being a part of that faith community. And it's just been such a full circle moment for me to sit there and think, wow, like this is where I was in this actual building, taking my kid to preschool, and now I'm here, So it's that part's been really amazing, probably my favorite part of the whole thing. And it's been fun to share that with our pastors and things like that. So between
Wow.
that part and I did have a good therapy person that I was able to connect with, like she would, and I talked on the phone every week, but gosh, I wouldn't have made it through that without that encouragement and that uplifting of those people.
I love the faith question, Rebecca. So, Lisa, did you have any like mantra, like a line that you repeated over and over again to get you through, or just something, a line that you
Or
relied on?
scripture, even a scripture.
Sure,
I
a scripture.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that as I went through that, and the purpose of life of purpose was actually a study too that we were going through at our church at the time. Rick Warren, that book was launched around that year, and so that became a very big um, path for me to follow. And so, like my husband and I would go through that devotional, and he would like read that to me, and I would just soak that in, and that would be such an important part of our journey. And then to like sort of halfway through it, it's about December and I'm done with the chemo and we're going to go through radiation. And we're talking about, okay, I'm going to be 35. Do you want to have a big party? Like, what do you want to do? Because it's all ending like right around then. And I'm like, okay, do I want to do that? Like, is that, so there was a scripture that I felt, I don't know how I came upon it, but it was in Ecclesiastes, and it's talking about a cord of three strands is not usually broken. And I felt like, wow, like I want to thank everybody by letting everyone know, like this is what you've meant to me. Like every one of you that stood with me, this is why I'm here. This is why our families made it through. And when we did that party, I did little favors, and we had that little scripture printed out, and that was kind of how I thanked everyone for their support. And that's become like a really big life verse for me. Because just two people really don't do well, but a third person, and those people I feel like shift, I have two very close girlfriends, and we've been a friend group of three for, since college. And I find myself I always thrive when, I always feel like, yes, you need your immediate family or whoever you're close to, but you also need another support system. And I think that when there's three, it's a lot better than two. And
Yeah.
that's just been in my head very strongly ever since I went through that whole experience.
Thank you for sharing that, Lisa, because that three-strand cord, as you're talking, I can see it again and again and again. A combination of your friends and your church family, your immediate family, your husband, your mom, and your faith. So this is a very strong cord that you have built, and you continue to do that even now when we're
Yeah, for
past,
sure.
that kind of acute situation.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could address that cord, that three-strand cord, and how you see it actively happening with you and your business and budget blinds.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if I stand back and look at our business model and the way that really Budget Blinds does function at its core, you have your inside your office people, which would include me most of the time, and you have your sales force, and then you have your install team, and none of those things work without the other. And we are very, very reliant on our install team because they're the ones who bring our projects to fruition, right? They go out and they put the product in, and that's when the customer, is either laughing or crying, happy that they worked with you or not, so I feel like just that is really probably key to how we run our business, is to keeping that perspective on there are three critical parts here into making our daily lives work with our franchise. And so yeah, I think that same theme is really on the daily for me mentally. And that's how we start our day. We have a meeting with our inside and our outside, and our installers, all three things are just all the time going round and round. So I'd say that that's just a critical piece of how we do business as well.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that working with a franchise young, early,
Yeah.
has shown up for you as part of a team, like going through the cancer and just developing teams later in life? How do you think that working with a franchise young has impacted all of that?
Yeah, I would say, when we came to Budget Blinds, the original 5 founders, we worked directly with them at our training, and really for the first several years. And I feel like that they did cultivate, especially in the first, it got big after like 10 years, but the first 5-10 years, they were such positive and very uplifting people. And we would go to convention once a year. We would have meetings quarterly, or maybe twice a year, I think, at that point, where they would always just ask. They would keep up with like what was going on. It was very, like, I was very open about that and about having cancer, and they would never hesitate to share, like, they had a couple of family issues actually with people in their families that had cancer at the time too. So I just think everybody really was honest and bonded, and we all felt like we supported each other. And yeah, we were all, trying to achieve that common goal. And at the time, Chad, who was our primary person that did marketing, was always talking about just hitting that like goal of becoming like 1,500 franchise, because that was always their goal, their number that they hoped to get to, and achieving their vision. But yet always with such like care and humanity towards us as people, right? Like I don't think we ever really felt like we weren't important to the company as humans, and that they respected, like, we all, I think we all came to Budget Blinds with different goals. For me, it was to be able to be with my kids and raise my children and still be at home a lot. But I think they always recognized that everybody had a driver, why that it was important to them to be a part of Budget Blinds. And they took the time to understand that with probably everyone at the time when it was smaller. And so I think that was one of the things that motivated us a lot, in those early years.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And that goes along with what you talked about a little bit earlier, Lisa. Budget Blinds, the original mission was similar in that every person does have a purpose, and this business allows them to fulfill it on a day-to-day business, whether it's full-time, part-time, however it is. I want to go back to this three-strand thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because it really moved me. I got to tell you, that really moved me. And my question around that is, you're describing each of these strands as different individuals or support systems or whatever, whether it's a therapist, a family member, the church, whatever it is, your franchise, or I would think if we're building a three strand, we have to be very picky about who those three strands are, correct?
Yes, that is true. I think you have to use a lot of discernment where you will focus your time primarily. I think, my probably superpower is being a very time, um, I don't want to say oriented, but just maybe time aware person, and how you're going to make the most of the time that you invest in something. So I think, you've got to be a little bit on the same page with the people that you align yourself with. I think to some degree, at least in business, and you can love like your team of people that you work with, but if they're not aligned with, for me, I've always tried to align my team with the core values of the franchise, and we always try to keep our focus on what is our goal with budget blinds. I mean, yes, we're going to have all sorts of noise in our personal lives, like things are going on, cancer's going on, kids are going on, or whatever, but to try to stay focused on what is budget blind's mission, what are we here to do, what are need are we trying to meet with our customer. And I think when we've remained customer focused, that's helped us align who we work with, maybe who we hire, or
Yeah.
even with vendors. Like back then, especially before technology, you spent a lot of time interfacing with your vendors in
Yeah.
live settings, whether that was, lunches, or that was meetings, sitting down for half a day, trainings, driving 2 hours to get to those. So it was a very time invest, type of thing. And I think even with that, we had a lot of people to choose from, but we would always hone in on maybe just two or three that we really wanted to cultivate that strong relationship with, so that, our business mattered to them too. And so we could count on them if something went wrong, or we would get that extra support if we had a customer situation. So yeah, I would say that's probably always how I've kind of focused when I've
Mhm.
made decisions like that.
I love how you zoom in on things that seem to be the heart of the matter, cutting out the
Mhm.
distractions.
Yeah, that's probably is me. Yeah.
How does
Call
one,
it time management.
right? You
Uh-huh.
mentioned time management and values and priorities. Like how does one develop that? How does one cultivate that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in my head, one thing I'm always how I see myself and I'll laugh at myself sometimes thinking like I'm the person that brings order to chaos, if that makes sense. So, whether it's a big, can be a physical big mess at whatever when your kids are little and you got to clean everything up, kind of that. But yeah, I think that's I'm good at sorting out and sorting through, okay, there's all of these things, but what is going to be the solution? Like I'm always looking for the solution to the problem, or at least what my best guess is for that. I
Mhm.
don't think you're ever going to know always for sure till you try things, but um, I think I've gotten a lot of practice in over the years with the business of, um, we service a lot of, I'll give you an example, a lot of people's repairs, right? So we've been in business forever and ever. And besides cultivating new business and servicing those, we do still need to do a good job of taking care of our clients when they have an issue with their blinds, or something has broken, or maybe just breaking that bad news of like, okay, this is 15 years old, we can't fix this anymore, and that's not always welcome news. But I think I'm always in the office, trying to help my team get to the bottom of what's going to save you the most time, what's going to be the way to resolve this, at least as amicably as we can. So
Mm.
yeah, I think that's probably something that I'm always in my head striving to do, maybe even without realizing that.
Mm.
And I think that people rely on me a lot for that, even if they don't realize it too.
Yeah. Wow.
So you build this three strand business, three strand life, and you have a superpower where you can go right in the midst of chaos and calm the storm, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you know the main thing, that's the main thing, right? You somehow I'm just curious how your brain works around that. How do you know? How can you go in? I go into overwhelm. I got to tell you, when I go into overwhelm, I shut down, I clean house until I calm down, and then
Yeah.
I'm able to deal with it. But it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, part of it is I feel like when I'm dealing with people and especially my clients, I mean, I am always mindful of like, how would I feel in that situation, right? Like if I'm frustrated, if they're frustrated with something, I want to feel what they feel and see it from their perspective. And I think some of that has come with experience in regard to, running the franchise. But I think I'm also just kind of, I'm probably very time oriented in that thought process too. Okay, let's resolve this quickly. Let's try to figure out a solution so that we can, implement that solution and move on. And probably, I try just to stay focused and not distracted, and just I will, I guess, sleep better at night too if I know that I did my best on that, even if it's not perfect, and it's not ever going to be perfect, but letting yourself be okay with you did your best. And so those are kind of my self-talk moments. And when I feel like everything is chaotic, I'm still going to give it my best shot at it. And that's probably what I'm thinking.
Nice. Very nice. So Lisa, if I'm sure there are people that are going to want to reach out or find more out about budget blinds and you for that matter, where can they contact? Where should they contact?
Yeah, they can definitely contact my office, and they can text us with our phone numbers. They can also email us at, gosh, what's our best email? My personal email is budgetblindserviceteam@budgetblinds.com. And then our direct office is at 925-691-4444. And so that's the easiest ways. And we can text too. We have a great text platform that we use now. And that's been a huge help with us being able to talk to a lot of people and service a lot of people efficiently. So yeah, I'm always happy to share my story with Budget Blinds or anyone that wants to talk about breast cancer. Yeah,
Yes,
that
for
too.
sure. So about 10 minutes ago, ladies, my front door, the wind cut it open. So if you're wondering why half my face disappeared, it's because the sun is coming.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
And of course it's fall, so I got leaves coming in the front door.
I know, right?
It's kind of crazy. Oh my gosh, Lisa, I got to tell you, this was such a great conversation, and it really has
Thank you,
ins
guys.
inspired me. And clearly, you are one focus, one time conscious, one purpose driven person that knows exactly what you're here to accomplish, and you're staying true to that purpose.
you.
So
Yeah, I
I
appreciate you guys. Like, it's interesting, to talk about something like your story and have someone help you put it together. So thank you guys I feel like it really helped me even see a few things a little different than I even realized. So I appreciate that.
Our pleasure, right, Tracy?
Oh, so
It's
much.
what we
Very
do,
much.
girl.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. It really is what you do. You guys are great, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah, it's always good to, I think, when you're a long-term breast cancer survivor, to have really keep learning about yourself and how that is part of your story, and it does affect you permanently. And then when that started at a young age, I've had quite a few people along the way, actually a couple of really close friends that have encountered breast cancer. So it's good to really just unpack that once in a while and sort of revisit it and see how far you've come.
You know what, Lisa? And then I'm going to let you do a wrap up, Tracy. You said something interesting in that you said it's part of your story, right? And it's developed your character and helped others and all of those things, but it's not your identity. And that is real clear.
Yeah. Thank
So
you. Yeah, I appreciate that feedback because it took me a long time to be able to actually be okay with that, if that makes sense. Because I think you kind of psychologically feel like you always owe breast cancer more space than maybe you really need to give it. Um, so one funny thing about me too is, back in college years, like I had really long hair, and I had literally left my hair as a pixie cut until COVID. So this is like an all new thing for me to have even this much hair. And I think even part of that for me was like, well, you
Mhm.
know, if you get cancer again, it's not as big of a deal as it would be, you know, that whole thing that goes to your head. So I think you're right, and that it doesn't have to be your identity, and it is okay to live a full life and cultivate what you're supposed to. But yet it will always, it'll always be there, you know. But I think that's an okay thing if you sort of direct that the right way.
And you clearly have. Tracy, I'm
Thank-
going to punt it over to you, hon, for a wrap up, and then we'll move on with the rest of our wonderful afternoon.
This is a more intense wrap up because there's just so much I would love to touch on. But I think the one thing that just keeps popping out at me, Lisa, is that I really admire your strength. And I remember years ago, a friend who had gone through breast cancer said something really interesting to me. She said that somebody can have stage 1 breast cancer and a poor mindset and have a poor outcome. Somebody else can have stage 4 cancer and have a wonderful mindset, a positive mindset, and have a positive outcome. And that's what came to mind when you were talking, because you clearly, not only with the cancer, but with family, with a life, with business, you clearly have such a wonderful, focused, positive mindset. And I just want to acknowledge you for that. And
Thank you
I'm
very much.
also, yeah, and I'm also very proud to be one of the 3 chords on the call today, telling your story.
Yes, we did.
Telling your
Yes, I know.
story.
It's just been so like so full circle. And it's
Yeah.
so not, I mean, like I have all my notes here for what I thought I would talk about, and it has not been any of them. And I love that. Like it's been really great. So thank you guys for all these
Don't
great
tell Megan. Don't tell Megan that we went off
Yeah.
the reservation.
No, I'm listening still. I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, you know, because it just, I think that's the way, you know, you get your best conversations and your best information, or, you know, storytelling is by, you know, maybe poking around it from a different angle, you know, or things just kind of start to evolve in the conversation. So thank you guys for doing that for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all
And
for
thank
taking the time.
you,
Yeah,
bet. Thanks,
welcome.
Megan. And to those of you listening in today, to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. We'll see you next week. Make sure to share Lisa's interview, like, comment. Let's get the message out. This is a very inspirational message. And of course, we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.